I hold in my hand chocolate chips, chocolate chip cookies, right? Now, what's interesting is this is just an example of when you go to any supermarket, there is a whole aisle dedicated to chocolate chip cookies. You can get whatever flavor or ever style you want, but what dawned on me is that you mean to tell me there's a whole aisle of the same product. So as I sat there looking at the aisle, I said, how is it possible in almost every supermarket in the country there can be an aisle dedicated to the same product? As I began to think about it, I said, it might be the same chocolate chip, but what differentiates one brand from another? The recipe. May I submit for your consideration, these chocolate chip cookies represent success. We all have been destined to be successful, but each one of us has a different recipe that God will use to create success. What I know is that Keebler ain't trying to steal Mrs. Fields' recipe, because Keebler does what they do, Mrs. Fields do what they do, and they both can sell millions of cookies every single year. Why? Because they're committed to their recipe. They believe that their recipe is the best, and as a result, they still find success. You don't see on the package of Mrs. Fields, we taste just like Keebler's. No! Mrs. Fields is Mrs. Fields. Keebler's is Mrs. Keebler's. And Chips Ahoy is Chips Ahoy. Oh, your difference is your destiny. You have a recipe for your success. So why are you over there trying to steal your neighbor's recipe? Why don't you start cooking up what God gave you? Start mixing up your ingredients and know that if your neighbor can find space on the aisle of the world for success, that God has some shelf space for you too. I only got one life. This is not a dress rehearsal. Can I remind you of that? You don't get a chance to do this life over again. This is the show. You're waiting to perform. The performance is now. So if you don't live out your truth, if you don't embrace your difference, will you be able to look back and say whatever you shortchanged your difference for, it was worth it?
All right.
Whoever you shortchanged your difference for, were they worth it? So often we become a limited version of ourselves just to be accepted by somebody who then goes on to move on to somebody else. And there we are left with the damage of having compromised ourselves for their love and acceptance. And they just said, no, and they're on to somebody else. And we're still left healing from a situation we should have never been in to begin with. Stay in your notes, DeVon. I just need to tell you right now, please do not want love so badly you compromise who you are to get it. If somebody you're dating cannot handle the fullness of your purpose and your calling and your personality, why don't you go ahead and drop them right now? Please drop them. Cut it off. Cut it off. Why? Because all you're doing is wasting your time and their time. Be who you're created to be. And if they cannot handle that, God bless them. Go ahead and buy them a bag of cookies and say, I'll see you on the other side. But I cannot allow myself to be subject to your limited thinking. I am bigger than your capacity to handle who I am. Who am I talking to right now? Your difference is your destiny.